Brandon, one of the founders of SidelineSwap that came on over a year ago, had done a small amount of transaction volume, around 400 grand. They're now over $3 million in total transaction volume, of which 2 million has come in the first few months of 2017. They make money by taking 12% of that transaction volume. They have over 15,000 athletes that are selling their old or lightly used gear on their site, amongst other things. Over 23,000 buyers have bought from those 15,000 sellers, growing about 30% month over month in both transaction volume and revenue, with their team of 10 scattered throughout the country, but mainly in Boston.
This is The Top, where I interview entrepreneurs who are number one or number two in their industry in terms of revenue or customer base. You'll learn how much revenue they're making, what their marketing funnel looks like, and how many customers they have.
I'm now at $20,000 per talk.
5 and 6 million. He's hell-bent on global domination. We just broke our 100,000 units sold mark.
And I'm your host, Nathan Latka. This is episode 760. Coming up tomorrow morning, we're going to learn from Jim Larison. He's raised $63 million, with 20% of the top 200 companies use his tool to communicate with employees. So what's the tool and how to get such big market penetration? Hello, everyone. Today, my guest is Brendan Candon. He's the co-founder and CEO of a company called SidelineSwap, an online marketplace where athletes buy and sell their sports gear. The company has over 100,000 users, participated in 500 startups, and raised $1.5 million in venture funding. Brendan, are you ready to take us to the top?
Yes, I am. Let's do it.
Awesome, man. So we had you on back about almost a year ago, and at that point, you had hit about $2 million in revenue. And I'm going to go in here quickly and just repeat some of these numbers. So at that time, you had processed about $400,000 in total kind of transaction volume, I think, between athletes and people buying athletes' old gear. You took a 12% cut at that time, and mostly it was from the seller, the athletes selling their goods. And you had about 3,000 sellers, about 6,000 buyers founded in 2015. All that right?
Yep, those numbers sound about right.
It's good memory, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm reading that off my sheet.
I was trying to think as you're saying. I'm like, all right, well, we've come much further than I thought off the top of my head.
Yeah. So update us. How's the business? Where's it at?
Business is good. We've had a great year. We are looking to do about 5 to 6 million in top line sales this year. Grew 30% month over month last month. Got a lot of exciting things in the works on the product perspective. We just launched our iOS app. I think we're like 2.5, 3x most of the numbers you mentioned. So things are pretty good.
And when you say you said 5 million in top line sales over the past 12 months, or that's what you'll do in 2017? That's
what we'll do in 2017. I don't know the trailing 12-month number off the top of my head, but we're getting close to 2 million year to date. And with the growth that we're on, we're pretty confident we're going to hit those numbers.
And is that help people understand what SidelineSwap is in case they didn't hear the first episode, and tell us what you mean when you say revenue? Is that transaction volume, or is that actually the cut you're taking from all the transaction volume?
Sure. So SidelineSwap's a platform, a marketplace platform where athletes can list gear for sale for free. So any sports equipment, new or used, and we drive traffic to the website to, for people to buy that stuff. We take a 12% cut. So when our top KPI is gross merchandise volume. So we look at how many sales are we driving through the platform. We take a 12% cut of that. That would be our net revenue.
Okay, got it. So when you tell me you're going to do 5 million in revenue, I should multiply that times about 9 to get total.
No, other way around.
Other way. Okay, so multiply 5 million times 12%. You're going, damn, I wish it was those numbers.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But this is a $60 billion industry for sporting goods. So we're just scratching the surface of what we could do. But we'll have to get to a pretty large volume to get to the revenue numbers we want to see.
Yep. Okay. So just to sum this up, so 2017, you think you'll do about $5 million in transaction volume. About halfway through the year, which is today, you've already passed about 2 million at your growth rate. Those numbers look pretty accurate.
That's right.
And then where are you in terms of, so last time we spoke, which is again about a year ago, you had 3,000 sellers on your platform that had sold, call it, or listed at least, one piece of their old gear, and you had 6,000 buyers. What are those numbers today?
For sellers, we're around 15,000 sellers. Wow. And about 24,000 buyers.
That's great. So one of the things I want to focus on in this interview that we didn't touch on last time is kind of first off, marketplaces are really freaking tough. I mean, you know this. How did you saw? I mean, like, give me I'm assuming, like, you're a creative guy. You did some weird shit. You had to have, otherwise it wouldn't be working. Like, what is the weird stuff you did to grow the sellers and the buyers on your platform?
Yeah, so I mean, we had to get very scrappy to get this off the ground. I mean, it's a two-sided marketplace, so we have to acquire supply through sellers, and we also have to drive traffic, and that has to stay pretty much in line. If you get too much supply, sellers are unhappy because they're not getting enough sales. If you drive too much demand without enough supply, you don't convert on any of those people visiting your website. So the way we got this started, we we had pretty unique insight into the sporting goods world of where there was inventory that was sitting in garages, warehouses, and equipment rooms. So what we did was we went to former college athletes, professional athletes, and other people in the industry who had accumulated piles of gear over their years of playing in some cases, or in some cases they were liquidating college equipment rooms or professional equipment rooms. We took that, got supply on the site, and it was really unique inventory. So think like we had Jimmy Vesey, who's on the New York Rangers now, sell his college hockey stuff from Harvard. We had like 25% of the former college lacrosse players come on and sell their stuff. We had a bunch of guys from the U.S. ski team do the same. So we get this highly desirable gear for these guys who were not selling otherwise. And then we drive demand through largely through social media in the beginning. So we were able to do it cheaply. We have 180,000 Instagram followers, close to 70,000 Facebook fans. Push this really unique product through social media, through our social media channels and through influencers. And then that drove demand onto the site. Then every athlete owns gear. And so they are able to list their product. They see the value in it. They list as well, and that creates this flywheel of supply. So you get the initial supply, you drive demand, the demand turns into supply, and that's what's helped us drive or hit these growth rates that we're hitting.
So is this, I mean, do people use you in terms of buying athletes, like their favorite college athletes' equipment? I mean, is it almost like a collectible thing? It's a big buildup, like, Jimmy X is about, who's the best lacrosse player at Harvard, is about to list his cleats on Monday at 3. Like, tune in to make sure you can grab them. I mean, is it kind of markety like that?
Yeah, there's some of that. So if you look at our Instagram pages, we'll be announcing college and pro. You can only sell after you've completed your NCAA career. But once you do, we'll use that type of unique inventory and those types of players there is a little bit of a collector component to it. It's about 5 to 10% of our marketplace. The majority of it is the utility of, this is a hockey stick that, or hockey skates that cost $800-900. I use them for one season. I'm selling them for $450 now. So most of the items you're purchasing are just general items that are 50% off and are still in good condition. And so that's the main value of the marketplace. But from a marketing perspective, we also use this unique inventory to get eyeballs onto the site.
Totally. And what are you at now? You said you already passed 2 million this year in terms of total transaction volume, historically, everything since you launched process through your platform.
About 3.5.
3.5. Okay, good. So, I mean, so you're really growing fast. I mean, you've done, if I'm doing the math in my head, you've done 70% of your total lifetime transaction volume in the first 7 months of 2017.
Yeah. That.
Interesting. And what's making kind of the flywheel pick up that kind of growth? Is it literally, I mean, are you just incessantly focused on more athletes posting more gear, or is it more buyers? Like, what's the key lever you're pulling?
It's a balance, but we think supply is the key driver. And so we focus a lot of time on getting supply onto the site. But that's a mix of pure marketing, of getting the word out about the brand, because we think every athlete's a potential seller, and we try to educate customers on the value of the gear that they're sitting on. You'd be amazed what sells. And so if anybody has some, whether it's golf clubs, tennis rackets, like I said, hockey, lacrosse, skiing, if you post it, you'd be amazed what sells.
What's the weirdest thing that's sold through your I'm really nervous about asking this question, but what is the weirdest thing that's sold through your platform?
We try to avoid jockstraps, but they're for the most part, it's not, there's nothing crazy off the top of my mind. Honestly, some of the more fun items is that we see kids selling Beats headphones and iPhones and some more accessories, and Vineyard Vine shirts and all types of apparel, any training apparel. Because the mentality is we're reaching a very young customer who's never sold online before. So if they have success selling their hockey skates, why not list some of the other stuff in their house that they know these people will buy? So we actually had somebody sell an Instagram account through our site that they had built a large following and wanted to sell it to another kid who wanted to take it over. So interesting things like that. Nothing crazy weird, but there's definitely some interesting behavior going on with a young demo.
Yeah, this to me is Brennan, such an interesting story, because when you look at, like, when you actually study how eBay got created, it didn't just like pop up as a site to sell stuff. They did what you did. They started with a super targeted demo, and then they
dispensers and Beanie Babies.
Yes, exactly. It was Beanie Babies, really. And what happened was they just watched what people did and grew with it, right? So like someone thinking, I want to be the next PayPal, like, you're doing it the right way, which is attack a very specific niche and see what happens. So what does the next 5 years look like for you? I mean, if you start seeing people sell Vineyard Vine stuff, do you become like a better rent the runway for like young college athletes?
The way we think about it is we want to be a resource for every sports family. And so that means we help them make money on the extra stuff in their house when we're starting with sports gear. We think we're going to build a large sporting goods brand. And then helping them turn the gear that they have into cash. So whether it's selling or buying, we think we could be a resource for a sports family. But we want to build the best possible shopping experience for athletes. That means, there's all sorts of stuff sold in Dick's Sporting Goods, and we want to make sure we pad out our inventory to provide that range of selection. But that's it. I mean, it's really build the best shopping experience for the sporting goods consumer and be a resource for sports families. And there's a ton that we could do before we reach that goal.
What's the average order value?
It's increasing, but it's around $80.
Interesting. Okay, $80. Is that a prime thing? Like, is that a key focus for you to increase that value, or not really? Just increase number of things listed?
Yeah, we focus more on increasing the number of things listed. It's weird because it's the end of the day, you want to help people save money. So by focusing on certain categories, we could control that a little bit more, but we pay attention to it. We're less focused on driving it up in the short term.
Got it. And last month, so that would have been May of 2017. How many buyers sold something and how many sellers bought something, just to get a sense of velocity?
We had probably 3,000 buyers, about 1,500 sellers, something in that range.
Got it. Dude, fascinating. So right before we started the show, you talked about funding. So I think last time you came on, you had only raised, I think, 120 grand seed, or I think that was from 500 startups, right?
Right.
Yeah. So where are you at today?
We raised 1.8 million last summer and raised a little bit more money this spring. It looks like we'll raise, in total, it's going to end up being around 3 million to date.
Okay, 3 million today. And so, like, walk me through, I mean, what do those negotiations sound like? I get a lot of people on here who are B2B SaaS. We know what those sound like, but a marketplace is different. Like, what's the question that a VC asks you that just pisses you off every time because they're just trying to trap you and it's a bullshit number that doesn't matter?
Well, I mean, I think most questions are fair. You need to be able to defend your business. The most challenging ones for us that we have to focus on are just really the market size and how big will this actually get. We're creating almost no one's doing this, right? Like, there's some brick and mortar models that have been pretty large. eBay has a large sporting goods category, but a standalone sporting goods marketplace is really what we have to convince people that we truly believe that there will be a sporting goods marketplace, that this category is plenty big enough to support one, probably $1 billion marketplace. And we look at things like Poshmark in women's fashion or Reverb marketplace for music equipment, which are super fast growing marketplaces in their categories that are peer-to-peer and have a lot of similarities to what we're doing. And so we look up to them, but also think, so that's the big sale of what we have to get people to believe with us.
And what are you growing at month over month right now?
We grew 30% month over month. Last month was a big month. We're around 20% for the year.
Okay. And what is that total transaction volume? I guess it's the same thing, transaction volume or revenue.
Yeah, they're pretty close. The average order value doesn't change much, so those two both are pretty in line. And
before we wrap up here, give me an update on the team. Where are you guys based and how many? Last time I think you were only 3 or 4.
Yeah, so we're at 10. We have our core team in Boston with some guys in New York. We're Probably going to consolidate soon, but we're so far been done pretty well with the distributed team. And
everyone's remote.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So no, we have a core team in Boston.
Okay.
And then there's a couple guys remote as well.
Like you're out, where are you, in the Valley right now?
I've bounced around to a couple accelerators. I'm in New York at the moment, but I spend a lot of my time in Boston.
Many of you listening right now don't have time to listen to every B2B SaaS CEO that I've interviewed. If you want to get access to the database I've created with year-over-year growth rates, customer accounts, margins, and many, many other data metrics and data points, you can go to getlatka.com. Here's the thing, though. That database, I keep it to myself. It's so freaking valuable. And to preserve the quality of the data and make sure that the people that have access to it have a true advantage, I'm only letting 10 companies on each month. So we're full this month, but you can go to getlatka.com to get on the waiting list for next month. And look, there's big people on the waiting list. I mean, the biggest VCs you've ever heard of. You've probably heard of them. They're big, private equity, billions and billions under management. So it's an impressive waiting list. Go get on now at getlatka.com. All right, guys, I talked about this earlier, but I schedule like so many meetings it would blow your mind. I mean, all my podcast interviews, right? Hundreds of entrepreneurs I talk to monthly. I schedule, and you know what? I do it so efficiently. I get them all to agree to my calendar, so all the calls are back to back to back. That means I'm not switching in between tasks all day long. I get them to batch so that I can be very efficient. It's so critical. I use a tool called Acuity Scheduling to do this at nathanlatka.com/schedule. It eliminates the back and forth between me and people I'm trying to meet with. It makes it very simple. And most importantly, they help me keep my no-show rate very low because they send out reminders. Helps you look very professional. So go to nathanlatka.com/schedule to sign up. And you get a great deal. You know, you guys know this. I hit people hard. I make great deals. And Gavin, the CEO, has given us a great deal. If you sign up like normal people, okay, on their website, you only get a 14-day free trial. If you use my link, nathanlatka.com/schedule, you get 45 days free. Okay, it's the best. It's free. Go to nathanlatka.com/schedule right now to sign up, and I'll see you there.
That's awesome, man. Brendan, let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Just finished Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. Was a huge fan of it. Would highly recommend it.
Number 2, is there a CEO that you're following or studying right now?
We spend a lot of time looking at marketplaces. I'm reading a book on Alibaba right now, so Jack Ma.
Yep. Number 4, is there a favorite online tool you have, like Acuity Scheduling?
We use a peer for video chat. With the distributed team, we're very active in Slack and using a peer, so those are both really helpful.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep are you getting every night?
A good 6 or 7.
That's pretty good. That's actually, I was expecting you to say lower, so that's good. What's your situation? Married, single, you have kids?
Girlfriend.
Girlfriend, so no kids that you know of yet?
No.
All right, good. And how old are you, Brendan?
29.
All right, last question. Take us back 9 years. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
That I should have been. I wish I knew to be more proactive and entrepreneurial at school while I was in college. And I don't think you need to start a business, but being actively engaged in the leader in organizations on campus and creating things gives you incredible experience from organizational management, marketing. So it doesn't matter what you do, but I probably could have done more of that while I was on campus.
There you guys have it from Brendan, one of the founders of SidelineSwap that came on over a year ago, had done a small amount of transaction volume, around 400 grand. They're now over $3 million in total transaction volume, of which 2 million has come in the first few months of 2017. They make money by taking 12% of that transaction volume. They have over 15,000 athletes that are selling their old or lightly used gear on their site, amongst other things. Over 23,000 buyers have bought from those 15,000 sellers, growing about 30% month over month in both transaction volume and revenue, with their team of 10 scattered throughout the country, but mainly in Boston. Brendan, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thanks, Nathan. Great to be back on.
If you enjoyed Brendan today, go back and listen to Eric yesterday. He shares how he built his company on top of cryptocurrency, Ethereum, and Ether tokens, and why he did it.